it's Nurse J, Nursing the Truth. Thank you for stopping by and landing on my channel. So if you like truth and you want to dive deeper into the mysteries per se, all of the things that we thought were the truth or the things that we have been taught all of our life, you might as well scratch that out, start over, babe, because it's all been one big fat juicy lie. So I've made 2 videos earlier today, so go check those out. But today, right now, we're going to take a little dive away from Egypt right now, and we're going to talk about some presidents. Yes. What is the truth and what's not? You know, a lot of people think that Barack Obama was the first black president of the United States, and they made such a big deal out of it. Well, we do know that that is not the truth. We do know that there were, a black president in the Continental Congress before there was the first president of George Washington. We do know that there were some black people or mulattoes, in the Congress, Senate, or what have you, House of Representatives, whatever. But we're talking about the 20th century. Who would I be talking about? Let me give you a little hint. Name was Ike. World War II. So let's just let the kitty cat out of the bag, per se. It's Dwight Eisenhower. Yes. Yes. This was one of the most major cover-ups of the 20th century. It's almost so disgusting. But once we go down the rabbit hole, because see, Nurse J gets other information and I share it with you. Some things I think about to look into or read about. But this was a interesting subject. So let's get into it, friends. Dwight Eisenhower. He was a Swedish Jew. His mother was black, and his father was white. In September of 1944, he wrote a letter to his wife, and it said, "God, I hate the Germans." He also said, "We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. 3 of these involved our own country, despite these holocausts." Now, something that's very strange about this is because from what I understand, there was not one picture in his whole presidency taken with his mother. You see, this was during the shaky times, of civil rights and, segregation and all that good jive. He says, although it might be necessary to grant blacks certain political rights, this does not mean social equality or that a Negro should court my daughter. Well, jackass, guess what? You're going to sit there and talk about your own self. This boils me to no end. to read things like this. You're going to go under the cover playing white boy when you have a black mother. And you're going to sit there and talk about half of your bloodline. You see, the cat's out of the bag, you dead man. And we're sick of the lies. We're not going to tolerate them anymore. You can do whatever you want to, say whatever you want to, drug us with whatever you want to, spray us whatever you want to, put whatever you want to in the water, but truth has the power over darkness. And I'm sick of it. And this is where we come together, because positively, collectively, we shatter the negativity. You know, he patronizes, talks about race and integration and equality. One historian reported that when he talked to eager African American audiences, he would remove his glasses and say, "Now you have to be patient." He told jokes about black people in bull sessions during the campaign and even in the White House. He confided to a friend that he did not believe the races need socialized, or that half a Negro should court my daughter. You go searching around long enough, you find where the bones are buried. You know, he even went to West Point, and it was obvious from his appearance that he was carrying another race's blood. The headmaster even talked to him and quizzed him, and then he admitted he had Jewish ancestry. You see, at West Point, you could only have a certain type of blood or be a certain race at that time. You know, his father, quote, was a Swedish Jew who married a Swedish gentlewoman, but we know that was a lie. When he worked with Douglas MacArthur in the South Pacific, MacArthur protested to his superiors in D.C. that Eisenhower was incompetent and that he did not want Eisenhower on his staff. In 1943, Washington not only transferred Eisenhower to Europe, but promoted him more than 30 more experienced senior officers to 5-star general and placed him in charge of the U.S. forces, of all of them in Europe. Pretty tough, guys, to swallow. Bernard Baruch was behind Eisenhower. His military promotions on the eve of World War II and during the war are curious to say the least. Zionists found an army officer who had been a military failure until Bernard Baruch promoted him to general. I hope you're starting to see what's coming down. His actions and responsibilities during and after the war, direct personal negotiations with Stalin on the placements of the armies and the surrender of territory won by Americans with the ceding of that territory to the Russians. The massacre of surrendered Germans at Dachau, the firebombing of Dresden, Operation Kill Hall, and the intentional starvation over 1,250,000 disarmed enemy forces all clearly mark him as a war criminal and embarrassment. In 1952, although he had been a Democrat most of his life, Baruch endorsed Dwight D. Eisenhower for president. He also flaunts his mistress. West Point was very conscious of any non-white candidates. Like I said, it was obvious from Eisenhower's appearance that he was carrying another blood. And he was quizzed all the time. Since the inauguration of perpetual peace by the United Nations, only two presidents, Truman and a crook from Texas, have had the fun of shipping large numbers of American men to be slaughtered on the other side of the globe and creating an excuse for massively increased taxation to bleed the people. His father was a Sheeny. His mother, a white woman, so he was not a Jew by Orthodox standards. So we're talking about Truman. The Jew Negro ancestry of him talks about all of his ancestry on this page. You can go to fathersmanifesto.net and it talks about this. His name through the lineage from the 1600s was, misspelled. It was stated, it is hard to escape the conclusion that Eisenhower was a war criminal of epic proportions. His POW camp policy killed more Germans in peace than were killed in the European theater. One Allied officer compared the American camps to Buchenwald. It is known and will be documented, the author said in my upcoming book in newsprint format, that the Allies had sufficient stockpiles of food and medicine to care for those German soldiers. It was deliberately, intentionally denied to them. The real influx of savages began in the administration of the filthy mongrel Eisenhower. Noted for his open and vicious hatred of Germans and dissimulated hatred of other Aryans, and his scrapping of what was left of the American Constitution. So Eisenhower was a patsy. Following World War II, the part Negro Eisenhower reclassified surrendering German forces as an unarmed enemy forces, thus removing them from the protection of the Geneva Convention, which applied to prisoners of war. This gave them the latitude to starve to death over 1 million German combatants. So let's think about this. Who writes the history books? I'm not going to say. You should know. Who owns the printing presses? I shouldn't have to say. You know. Who is in charge of the armed forces in all of Europe? 5-star general. You know. Who becomes president after World War II? You know. So it all fits very perfectly when it comes down to that time frame of the WW2. So you get to make your numbers. And we know who the patsies are. But really, was it the white German people that were in the camps? Something to think about. Moving on. I digressed. You gotta research. And it takes time. Let's see what we have to dig up about him. Yes, he did. He had Jewish blood. He said he did hate the Germans. There's just so much about this. And there is a video about him. So all you have to do is go on YouTube and do on here, Dwight Eisenhower, a Swedish Jew. He was identified in the West Point Military Academy graduating class yearbook published in 1915. Eisenhower is identified as a terrible Swedish Jew. His behavior, his manifesting behavior, was a concern to his fellow officers. He was incompetent. During the days before World War II, he was affectionately called and was quoted as a ladies' man and the best damn bridge player on the post. Patton didn't like him and called him a wimp, not worthy of his rank. Eisenhower advised FDR and Churchill, which caused the war to drag on for an extra 2 years, resulting in millions of deaths on both sides. And hundreds of billions of dollars of profit for Eisenhower's racial brethren, the international bankers who financed both sides. It might be as well to state here that in early as 1902, the jury had a plan for destruction of Christianity in Europe. This called for the destruction of the first Tsarist Russia, which took place in 1917, and then the destruction of Germany. So guys, how do you like that? There's just so much to report on this. It's like, you know, if I was half black and half white, me talking about my black grandmother, calling her a Negro and that they're not worthy and they don't need to be socialized, and I wouldn't let my, you know, daughter date a black man. I mean, that's what this man is. That's what he was. Disgusting. So they, the other side of the family, had to make it shh, so that the agenda was swept under the rug and he was used. All of his siblings were very successful. No problems. Did he have a change of heart at the end? He warned us in a little bitty speech about the military-industrial complex. Was he MK Ultra'd? Who knows? But guys, not Barack Obama was not the first black president. Hotep and Ashe. And I hope you've liked this eye-opening video. Have a great day. Goodbye.